And good morning. Welcome Representative Rhonda Baker in for us this morning.
Thank you.
Eccles, we don't know where he's at. But Representative Dunnington, good to see you. There was an event this week that may bring an issue back to Oklahoma we've been talking about for years. Virginia has become the latest state to expand Medicaid. Could this be an Oklahoma issue in the very near future?
Yeah, it was encouraging to see the state of Virginia move forward on Medicaid expansion this week in a bipartisan way. It gives me a lot of hope that our state could be the 34th state that would join others in Medicaid expansion. This should not be a political issue. This should be an issue about people, and our people need health care expansion here in the state of Oklahoma. It would ensure another 160,000 Oklahomans. For every $1 that we would spend in the state of Oklahoma, we would receive $9 back from the federal government in order to help us make sure that we had access to health care in rural areas of our state. Many places in the state of Oklahoma, our citizens are having to drive hundreds of miles to have access to health care. It doesn't have to be that way. It's common sense. It shouldn't be political.
A lot of issues will be awaiting the next legislature. Do you think this might be one of them?
Okay, I agree with Representative Dunnington. This should not be a political issue. With the election of a new governor and a new legislative body, I believe this issue could come back up to surface and have discussion again. I know in the past there's been some hesitancy surrounding the cost associated with the coverage. We have to be very fiscally responsible, yet take care of our most vulnerable. And so that's the balance that we have to come up with and find the solution for.
Do you know what is almost as fun as reading a Trump tweet? A Dunnington tweet. You don't see something real. Let's talk about this. Let's take a look at this. This was something our colleague put up this week. He put up this idea that 2018 elections in Oklahoma will likely devolve into a contest of party instead of state. And down at the bottom, he said, let's decide together. What if we decide with great ideas instead of promises? And what a silly idea. Do you think, all joking aside, do you think we may be getting to the point where ideas outweigh partisanship?
You know, I really respect Representative Dunnington. He's one of my favorite Democrats that I get to work with on the floor of the House. I do think that this is a direction that we need to go, that Oklahomans expect us to take. You know, on the House floor, we talk together and we are friends behind the scenes. It is interesting, though, how when the cameras start rolling and the audience forms in the gallery, how we become politicians all of a sudden. And it's all, you know, we're bickering and we're pandering to an audience. We have to stop that. Oklahomans are demanding it. We have to find solutions for our state and stop the political bickering.
Why did you put that tweet up? Because on the surface, I totally understand it, but we have been very partisan for a very long time.
We have. Our state needs a fundamental change. The state of Oklahoma needs to start thinking long term. We need to be thinking ahead a decade, 2 decades. And we can't do that when we devolve into this hyper-partisan nature where we pick sides and choose a side instead of choose ideas. There are a lot of really good people, really talented people running for office this session. I have always been proud to be a Democrat. I'm still proud to be a Democrat. We've got some great Democrats running for office, but there are some great people running for office, and we need to spend the time to choose the right person to come to the State House and work in the betterment of our state so that we can solve long-term problems.
Yeah. All right, this is very nice. It's actually nice for a change to see something positive out there on the Twitter sphere. Okay, speaking of partisan politics, everything is being viewed through the prism of the campaigns. Attorney General Hunter, who has a hot race of his own, weighed in this week on this petition the folks are circulating to try to repeal the revenue package that resulted in a teacher pay increase. June the 11th, they go before the Supreme Court. Could this repeal actually happen in Oklahoma?
The repeal could certainly happen in Oklahoma, and I think what this issue is more about Senator Coburn and the group of people he's put together in order to undo the tax package, the revenue package that we passed during session. This is less about Attorney General Hunter. I know some people have tried to make the issue about him, make the issue about his stance on teachers and teacher pay, but let's not kid ourselves. This issue is about Senator Coburn, and it's about backwards thinking. It's about looking into the past instead of looking into the future. As I said, we're not thinking long term. We need to think about how are we going to fund education moving forward in a way that allows us to be in the top 10 in the United States in education outcomes and not in the bottom 10.
So the AG greenlights this. The Supremes are going to have a chance to do something June the 11th. But what if? What if the petition were to circulate? What if they were to get the signatures? What if it were to pass?
Okay. If the petition circulates, the signatures are garnered, and this does make it to the ballot, I think it's important that the people that have demanded change with our educational system, with our agencies that want the funding, that they have to be very vigilant to make sure that they get out and vote against that referendum petition. Of course, that is something that the Oklahomans will have to decide, but they've made it very clear to us up at the legislature that this was an important issue to them, that we start putting education first, and Oklahomans ultimately we have to decide.
All right, and let's talk a little bit about education. There are campaign forums. Teacher groups are talking to potential lawmakers. Is education going to be a really big issue in the primary?
Okay. Education has been a pivotal issue for over 20 years in the primaries. Last year, or the last session, actually, I was elected. I'm a former teacher, and there was a big movement then. There is a big movement now. Again, this shows that education is very important to Oklahomans, and so I'm excited to see the outcome of the elections and to see how many more educators maybe get brought into the House and the Senate for us. It's just an exciting time, and I'm glad that educators are finally becoming very engaged in the system that we have.
Besides those statewide races and medical marijuana, which is going to be bringing a lot of people out, will this be one of the main issues in the primary?
Yeah, education is going to be a main issue in the primary, but more important than education as an issue, what's going to be the most important thing in a primary is, will Oklahomans come out and vote? You've heard me say this on this program week after week after week. Unless we engage in the process, unless we commit ourselves to civil discourse and to civil engagement, then we won't have any difference. It won't matter what the issue is, education or Department of Corrections or infrastructure, all those will just be what they are, issues. What we need to have is we need to have an engaged electorate that makes it a point to go out and vote in primaries. If all educators, their spouses, their neighbors, if they all participated in the process, they would absolutely decide these elections.
Thank you both for being here. See this again at news9.com/Counts. Get digital. Follow me on Twitter @MitchellTalks.